Welcome back to Great Day. All of you parents know social media can be an interesting place, especially when students make posts that can get them in trouble. And in fact, right now, the United States Supreme Court is debating this question. Can public schools regulate the off-campus after-school speech of students when that speech is made on social media? That is what we are exploring today with Ed Herman from Brown and Crouppen. Ed, this is something that most parents, step-parents, grandparents never worried about when they were in middle school, high school, or college, but this is a very real thing that schools all over the country have been dealing with.
Absolutely. And it's only going to get more challenging. And I think that's why the Supreme Court decided to hear this case. Just to give the people a little background as to what happened here. You had a high school freshman who had tried out for the varsity cheerleading squad and found out that she didn't make varsity, but she did get on the JV team. And I guess she was at the mall and wanted to blow off some steam and gave the middle finger, took a picture, and then had a post that basically said, F school, F cheerleading, F this, F that. And so it got back to the cheerleading coaches, and they were like, well, this doesn't match up with the standards of our cheerleading program. And so they punished her for it. Well, she took it to court and basically said that she was exercising her First Amendment rights to free speech, and that the school, as a government entity, because it's a public school, had no right to restrict that because it was after hours on her own private social media. The lower court agreed with her, and they said that it was protected free speech. Now it's worked its way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's going to hear this on April 28th, and we'll get their decision a couple months later. But it's going to be really interesting to see where they decide to draw the line.
And this case is relatively new. Snapchat hasn't been around that long. So are there any precedents from an entirely different era with this?
There are, and they do give us some guidance, because I know people out there probably already have formed an opinion, and I urge people, don't form an opinion too quickly. That's one of the challenges the Supreme Court has in these situations. They can't just look at these specific facts. They have to think about setting a precedent, and if they allow one decision here, what does that mean for the future? So generally, all of your freedoms have a limit, have a restriction. And in a situation like this, they have to decide where to draw the line. So generally what they're going to look at is, did it happen on campus or off campus? In this situation, while it happened off campus, it was obvious that it was going to bleed on campus. Then they're going to look at and they're going to decide, did this create an unreasonable disruption of the education system? My guess is because it was just blowing off steam and it was a little profanity, I think it's very likely the Supreme Court's going to side with the girl. They're very reluctant to take away your First Amendment rights. Remember, that's your First Amendment. That's the first thing they put in the Bill of Rights. Any restrictions on it have to be really narrowly construed. On the other hand, I believe if this had been a bullying situation where they had gone after a student or had bullied, I think the Supreme Court might look at that very differently and say that's creating a danger, much like yelling fire in a crowded movie theater, which we all know is sort of the classic example of a First Amendment limit. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I'm just glad I'm not in their shoes.
Me too. Social media definitely blurring the lines of boundaries. It's so interesting. Ed, always good to see you.
Yeah, important to know real quick. If this had been a private school, they absolutely would have been allowed to restrict this speech. The only reason it's a question is because it was a public school.
Well, if you would like to get in touch with Brown and Crouppen, you can call them anytime at 314-222-2222 or visit their website at getbc.com. And while you're online, take about 10, 20 minutes, even an hour, because you need to check out getbctv.com for so many funny, entertaining, and informative videos from Ed and the rest of the gang at Brown and Crouppen. You'll definitely be glad you did.